Hello, this video is on the negative potential of the dwarf planet Ceres. There are 5 dwarf planets: Pluto, Ceres, Eris, Haumea, and Makemake. And Ceres is unique in that it is the only dwarf planet within the orbit of Neptune. And just to review what a dwarf planet is, I'll quote from the website universetoday.com. According to the definition adopted by the IAU in 2006, a dwarf planet is, quote, a celestial body orbiting a star that is mass enough to be rounded by its own gravity. Let me stop there for a second. So a dwarf planet is round, just like the Earth is round and planets are round. If an object is big enough, its gravity inclines it to be round, or roundish. So in that way, Ceres is more like a planet than all of the hundreds of thousands of other asteroids out there. But why is Ceres not considered to be a planet and also Pluto not to be considered a planet? It's because they have not done what we often call clear a path. So when the object becomes really big, like Mercury, Venus, and Earth, it clears a path, which means there aren't other little objects, little asteroids in the path, crossing into the path of the planet. And in the case of Ceres, Pluto, Eris, Haumea, and Makemake, there are objects moving in and out of the path of the object. So at the bottom line is this: Ceres is a lot more like a planet than the other asteroids. Therefore, we would think it would be especially important, and we really want to investigate it. So, and we have investigated it. Back in March 2016, so I'm making this video in January 2020, that's almost 4 years ago, I made a video and I presented the results of our research on Ceres, and I have a link to that video at the end of this video. And I'm not going to cover everything that's in that video from the research we did in 2016, so you may want to watch that as well. But you don't have to in order to appreciate this video. And by the way, that research that we did in 2016, we call extreme case sampling, they're major research projects. I mean, you put usually hundreds and hundreds of hours into assembling all that information, and there's no cherry picking of data. So it's very exciting, very helpful, very informative research. Now, in looking at the results and different people looking at it and applying the ideas, we realized that we overlooked something or skipped over something in our first deep study into Ceres, which are what are the negative potentials of Ceres. And some of those negative potentials are evident in our first study. So let me read this paragraph at the bottom here, is that in vibrational astrology, which is the form of astrology that I practice, every planet and every zodiac sign, every house, everything in astrology serves a positive purpose. Now, that's not how astrology was viewed all the time and still isn't today. Like Saturn's the great malefic. It's got some bad stuff in store for you. But actually, Saturn is not fun to live with all the time. It can, people have diseases. We have, accidents. There's crime. There's all kinds of evils and problems in the world. There's no doubt about that. And the astrology is involved with that. But it's not the purpose of the astrology to wreak havoc in our lives. If something's not achieving its purpose in the best possible way. And some things may be painful, but there's a purpose, a goal, a positive evolutionary reason for that planet. So, for example, when we call Saturn the great malefic, its intent is not malefic. Without Saturn, we have no interest in getting to the heart of things, to getting to the real, sincere bottom line of things. There's no skeleton upon which the rest of the body is built. So what do we want to look at with Ceres? Is that Ceres has this very positive purpose of bringing a broader philosophical perspective to our personal lives and to our personal needs. That's what we emphasized in the findings in our research study, and that's true. Now, what's interesting is in that video, I often use the word humanitarian, that Ceres is humanitarian. Well, humanitarian is good, and the purpose of everything in astrology, as I said, is good. But what happens when Ceres is malfunctioning? So that's what I wanted to talk about here. So, what is good about Ceres is that it takes into account the larger social and philosophical context of our personal lives. Instead of just being immersed in meeting our personal needs of food, shelter, water, and other needs like need for beauty, need to learn, curiosity, need to do something useful. I think that's a need for love. So all of these things are needs, and Jupiter brings this broader view, philosophical view, into that personal world of ours. So in that first research study, we picked out 3 people who have Sun conjunct Ceres with the smallest orb. And we have to make sense of Ceres for those 3 people. So it's a very data-driven approach. We don't have any personal choice in selecting those people. One of those people is a writer, Paul Bourget. And the question is Bourget bringing an enlightened humanitarian perspective? Or is he using philosophy and religion to interfere with our personal lives? Okay, so now we're seeing the negative potential of Ceres, bringing this broad philosophical view into our personal lives. Well, it might give a broader, more elevating social context to what's going on, or it could be, let me repeat this again, using a philosophy and religion that interferes with our personal life. So maybe this big, broad view is not actually correct. There's no guarantee that Ceres is going to be correct. It's just striving to bring it in. And that's where the negative tendency of Ceres comes in. So Ceres connects Jupiter, the big Jupiterian philosophical world, with the inner planet world. So that's what's going on. So let's look at some of the writing of Paul Bourget, because it really emphasizes the Ceres themes. And another thing, I'll note this top little paragraph here on this slide, that Paul Bourget's ideas evolved and changed over time, and this is typical for Ceres. So Ceres is exploring, just like Jupiter, it's exploring that large social, philosophical domain to see what it can tell us about our lives. And often you will see that people with a very strong Ceres will evolve and develop their ideas. So let's see what it looks like in the case of Paul Bourget. Here's a website, bartleby.com. You can see the specific website address at the top here. And I have highlighted a quote about one of his books. I'll leave the quote there so you can see where I'm reading from. And if it's too small on your screen, you can't read it, fine. You'll just hear me read it anyway. It says, in this book, Bourget shows the danger to a family of a too rapid change of social condition and standing. What? Let me just stop right there. Ceres shows the danger to a family of a too rapid change of social condition and standing. In other words, how the larger social context is affecting things like family, which is a very personally, without family or some form of taking care of babies, the babies don't survive. So family is an institution that ensures our survival and hopefully thriving. It may not be the only way to do it, but it's, I guess, the most common way to do it. So it's an institution that's developed to help us exist and how does the social context affect it? That's the main topic of this book. It's the very first sentence in this description of what the book is about. And so one of the main characters is Jean Monnerson, son of a poor peasant, becomes through tireless energy and broad intelligence a professor. Without transition, he passes from the working class into the bourgeois. So, working class family, this guy is ambitious, he's smart, he becomes a professor, and the problems that brings about, that transition, and everything that happens, and it goes on and on and on about all of the issues and problems that happen. Okay, and a lot of stress. The favorite son abandons the idea so dear to his father, who realizes that in spite of apparent success, his life is a dismal failure. Whoa. So, in other words, the father loses contact with his tradition by transitioning into this new social class. Of course, your children are influenced by this. I mean, how many times has this happened to people? And then the parents feel bad about that. So this conflict of social progress and our position in life and moving up and how that relates to our personal lives and heritage. Very serious issue. Then in the next book they mention, right here in this next paragraph, called, I'll just put it in English, a divorce. So this next book is a forceful plea against divorce. Again, a statement, a philosophy, a viewpoint on these very personal things. And he happens to take a stance against divorce. Now you may think right off the bat, that's not humanitarian, that is not kind, that is not sensitive. Well, Ceres is not always kind. So that is the image of Ceres. That Ceres is this maternal energy that's soft and supportive and beautiful and sweet. Well, it always is. It's not always true. Or maybe you think he's right, whatever you think, but that's typical of Ceres, because Ceres has Jupiter qualities, and Jupiter's philosophical. Jupiter is dealing with things that we don't have a scientific validity for. It's exploring. So it's exploring these things, and we have to use philosophy, intuition, whatever data we can gather to come up with an answer. But nobody knows. It's not like 2 + 2 = 4. Fact, game over. It's not that simple. And these are the things that Ceres is interested in, because it has that Jupiterian quality. Well, anyway, in this website, it goes on to discuss the details of the book and what happens, and on and on and on and on. Next book, next book, next book. Continuously having the Ceres themes. So back to the PowerPoint. My bottom line point is that in that first research study we did, we were approaching Ceres in terms of what is its function. The function is always positive. The hope is to make it more humanitarian, to bring our personal lives into a larger perspective, and that will direct our lives in the most positive direction. It's not necessarily going to always achieve that. And again, with Ceres, as with Jupiter, people will have strong opinions because we don't know for sure what's right or what's wrong, and so on. Sometimes in retrospect, many years later, we can look back historically and say, oh, that was a mistake, or that was brilliant, and we become more sure as we learn more, we see how things work out. Another person in the original study is the actor Val Kilmer, and Val Kilmer has done some really good things in terms of positive steps to bring a humanitarian perspective into his personal life. I mentioned that in the first video that he bought 600 acres so he could get his food more naturally and so on. Then he moves on into Christian Science. Well, some people are going to look at Christian Science and say, that's not humanitarian, that's a little wacko. So depending on what your philosophy, what your view is, and how he expresses himself, and the decisions he makes, let's go back to that previous slide. You may decide, as I put it here, that he's using philosophy and religion to interfere with our personal lives. Right? Or is it bringing an enlightened humanitarian perspective? So, my goal as an astrologer and teaching astrology is to point out how the astrology is working. I don't need to share with you my viewpoint on Val Kilmer or Paul Bourget. That's not important. Different people have different viewpoints. Maybe they've done wonderful things and have wonderful thoughts. Maybe they're awful. Maybe they're destructive. Maybe they are a mix of both. That's for you to decide. And that's always an issue with Ceres, is whether you're really moving things forward or are you just making things more difficult by imposing these philosophical beliefs on a natural, more organic process. Okay, so let me show you this website where Val Kilmer is talking. Here it is. Why is it not coming up? This website's just gone blank on me. How weird is that? There it is. It just took forever to come up. So here's Val Kilmer. Says that love and religion helped cure his cancer. I'm going to read a few little sections of this. He says, people that know I am a Christian Scientist make the assumption that I have somehow endangered myself. But many, many people have been healed by prayer throughout recorded history, and many, many people have died by whatever was modern science. Okay, so as you probably know, Christian Science puts a lot of emphasis on the power of prayer. And here's a little story. He also said that he met the creator of the defibrillator, Dr. Bernard Lown, who told him that love was the most important medicine. He started to weep without his voice wavering, and he leaned into me and said, fluff their pillow. That's what I tell the interns. Love. Love heals. More than any other skills, I urge them to love the life they are entrusted to save. So what Val Kilmer is implying here is that he's not so weird and strange. Even very highly respected doctors know the power of love, and he's implying he's not saying that he never uses any kind of treatment or whatever. But in any case, the point is this. He brings in a very, very strong philosophical perspective into those immediate personal needs and issues such as illness, disease, etc. Does the power of prayer work, and so on? We can all have different opinions and different views on exactly how it's used, but here he's saying he's not so out of line with current science. Okay, so again, my point here is not to argue whether it's, quote, good or bad. That's always the challenge with Ceres. And some people objected to me using the word humanitarian too often in the first video, and that's because we're emphasizing the positive potential and the positive steps that people were trying to make. Always in astrology, we have to look at what the planet is, you might say, trying to achieve, what its function is in life, and then what can happen. And life on planet Earth is not perfect, to put it mildly. And, maybe that's said tongue-in-cheek, but it's actually quite serious. The planet is being threatened by pollution, etc. There's human beings have been violent, throughout all of recorded history. The pain and suffering just goes on and on and on. So, obviously, if the planets all have a positive purpose, there's got to be something going on that associates with the negative. One of the ways in which vibrational astrology is very different from many other forms of astrology is that we don't look at the chart and say, oh, this is good, this is bad, Aries is good, Taurus is good, Gemini is bad, whatever, or squares are bad, trines are good. We're looking at them as having a purpose, a part of natural law. And some things tend to work out better than others. It can vary depending on circumstances, the living conditions of the person, and the opportunities they have. Okay, but I wanted to bring out in this video the dark side. There's a dark side to everything in astrology. And so in this video, I wanted to share with you the dark side of Ceres. Okay, I think we're near the end here. And I'm just mentioning here what I've mentioned before, that what we've noticed with Ceres is very often the person's ideas change and evolve over time. This is true for Paul Bourget. It's also true for Val Kilmer. And sometimes also with Ceres, Ceres is not as one-dimensional and simplistic as some people might think. In American politics today, for example, very often people have a very simple and linear view to things, or at least the media does. You know, that the Republicans are right, or the Democrats are right. They sometimes go for more finely nuanced views. So you will sometimes see things that could surprise you, like Val Kilmer is a Christian Scientist. He's also a big supporter of extremely left, what they call in the media anyway, extremely left politically, extremely environmental, for environmental protection and so on. So that's just something to be aware of when you're looking at Ceres. They may come up with a basic format, basic model, and they will adhere. They are looking for that clear view, and they can become members of a specific philosophy or religion, but they're always digging and searching and looking for answers. At least we hope they are. And I can't say always. In a healthy Ceres, they continue to search and develop, and typically we do see that. So let's see, I've got, that's my last slide, so just to summarize, what is the dark side of Ceres? The dark side of Ceres is that introducing a larger philosophical perspective is not consistently as sweet, supportive, and maternal as Ceres is usually depicted to be. You can find lots of books and YouTube videos on how wonderful and maternal Ceres is. Wouldn't life be wonderful if a planet was just so consistently, wonderfully this beautiful maternal archetype? Unfortunately, it's not true, and it's also taken us a while in our research to really see this dark potential of Ceres, and it's kind of dark in a you might say almost an insidious way. It's not that people are wanting to be dark. Ceres has this sweet kind of aspiration. It's just they think they're doing good. What's that saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. That really can apply to Ceres, that they think their religious beliefs and philosophical perspective is so wonderful, but factually it really just may not be. So there is a kind of sweetness to the Ceres intention. The net result is not necessarily so sweet. So to that extent, this image of Ceres is generally correct. There is a sweet kind of motivation involved. But it's also not as touchy-feely as people say Ceres is. Ceres is bringing in a social perspective. So it's not all, close and warm and gentle. It's thinking about, do I really want to use this medicine? Do I really want to eat this kind of food? Do I really want to drink this water? What has our social system provided to us? Is it really the best way? Is this really the best way to educate you? It's questioning, it's searching, it's exploring from that perspective what is best. So the inherent feeling of Ceres, it does have a positive, gentle feeling, but it's not all about just me and you, me and you. You'll see this broad-mindedness involved in their perspective on these things. So sometimes Ceres can base its views on food, ecology, health, love, and marriage on what the person considers a more enlightened philosophical view, which in the end could end up being harsh and destructive. It's possible. May or may not be, depending on what philosophy they embrace. Because Ceres tackles issues that are not scientifically resolved, often there are strong views regarding how effective, healthy, and constructive the beliefs of the person with a strong Ceres are. Just repeating and summarizing our point. So, this just helps. I hope this video helps anyway in kind of deepening our appreciation for what Ceres is. The more we look at these things, the more we think about the way they work, we see the different ways that they can be expressed. And always we need to look at what's happening when the planet achieves its goals in the most constructive, positive way, and in what ways can it go off. So this is a little dive into the ways that Ceres can go off base, and then we get the dark side of Ceres, just as we can get the dark side of anything in astrology. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.